So let's say that someone's overwhelmed by decisions. They feel like they're just flooded with decisions coming their way. And at that moment, the temptation is, I would like relief from decisions, please. Get clear with yourself. If it's just relief, are you sure you want to give up the whole thing? Because there might be more value to the thing that you're in the middle of than you're giving credit. And sometimes it's when you choose it, but sometimes it's when it chooses you. When circumstance comes your way, you can look at it as a means by which you're suffering and it's awful. But if you can somehow get to a place where you actually see the thing as an opportunity for training, there's a radical shift. And as you change your perspective around it, all of a sudden you might discover like, oh no, this is a remarkable set of circumstances that if I relate with this differently, I'm going to get something out of it that I would never have gotten otherwise that will serve me for the rest of my days. And this is what we want to invite people into. As humans, we prefer the path of least resistance. We crave convenience, the payoff without the price. But when our lives revolve around comfort, it doesn't deliver. Living in perpetual comfort leaves us weak and asleep. This podcast is an invitation to flip that script, to choose the unlikely path, to get the life you really want through voluntary discomfort. This is Strong and Awake. I'm Dane Sanders. So Mitch, I want to tell you a story.
Let's hear it.
I'm a freshman in college, and I'm not really in college to learn. I'm in college for athletics, and that's why I came to school. Was I got recruited, and I'm stoked on it. Like it's awesome. But what's not awesome is accounting, and what's not awesome is economics. And I'm in my first semester of rigorous responsibility where no one's telling me exactly what to do and setting me up with kind of paint by numbers approaches to learning. And it's on me. And candidly, I'm just out beyond my skis, way beyond my depth. I do not think I was smart enough to deal with the concepts that were coming my way. But more critically, I was not practiced enough in the idea of learning and what it takes to grow your intellect. So I remember getting on the phone with my mom and basically making the case of why I needed to drop some classes, that this was the right answer, that if, I'm an athlete and we travel and we got a lot going on, and what seems really clear, I could even spiritualize a little bit, like maybe I'm being led or called to release, all the, and I hope what you're picking up, and I don't even know if this is historically accurate, but it's certainly currently accurate. This is the kind of language I hear a lot these days around folks who are overwhelmed, flooded, and they really make a fantastic narrative or story around why removing things is the point. And it's funny, given how, if folks have listened to the show for a very long time, you've heard us talk about things like travel light. Like, wouldn't travel light ring really true to this notion of like getting rid of these things that are overwhelming? And I don't know if it was my mom who gave the suggestion or maybe it was a professor at the time. I don't know who it was, but somewhere I clued in to trying to get rid of what I'm calling the problem was actually the biggest mistake I could have made. The more critical thing for me to do was to recognize what was I committed to do and go towards that thing. And maybe if there was any traveling light, the lightening of the load was actually the easy stuff, the comfortable stuff, the stuff that I found precious and wanted to keep with me. And so back to my story, I took accounting and I failed the class and I had to take it again. And some might say, well, that was foolish. Why did you do that? Well, it turns out I was the kind of guy, knucklehead, jock dude, that needed the course twice to get what I needed to get. And it was really uncomfortable. But I would argue that, especially looking back, at the time I wouldn't have argued this, but going forward, it was brutal. Like really, really, really uncomfortable. So subjectively, I get why I wanted to release on the hard bit, but it would have been a mistake. And what I want to suggest is, and this is complicated, right? Because I'm taking my little poorly remembered story and projecting that onto our listeners and saying there's something for all of us to get here. And I'm not on the receiving end of this. If you're hearing me and I'm being insensitive to the duress you're under right now, and you think I'm saying go headlong into more, there's nuance. There's kind of discernment that's required in this kind of moment. But before you get to your decision, I think there's an opportunity to take pause, especially if you're craving relief. I just need relief. I just need relief. I need comfort. Make sure that you're not actually giving away the very thing that you're also wanting, which is some sense of growth or some sense of maturity or some sense of moving forward in the direction you actually have wanted to go toward in retrospect later. So that's what I want to talk about today.
I think that's a great topic because especially since we've had an episode about travel light in our Anchor series, this is, like you said, a very common cultural theme of like letting go, being authentic to yourself, living, and like, again, I say these things without being hypercritical, like, because I know there's certain contexts in which, yes, those things are all true, but I think a lot of these things can be extended to be quite permissive and actually let us off the hook for the very thing that will actually make us really better.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that by the end of this, we also talk about those moments when it is important to get off that hook and to recognize there's a process there. So help me remember, Mitch, because we need to close the loop on this, because there are some of you do need to quit some things and they might be hard things that you're quitting, and that's okay. But if you're going to do it, especially if you put yourself on the hook already, just dropping them won't really serve you. There's a process, and we'll talk about that process at the end.
So before we get to that process, let's talk about like what the person that's listening to this, the people that are navigating this kind of overwhelm that they feel like they need to kind of lighten their load, or they're feeling this weight of decision fatigue and the busyness of life. Like, what are they experiencing? And I'd love to take that a little bit kind of higher order upstream a little bit to get to the root of, what they might be navigating in that moment.
Yeah, I think it could be helpful to go after a common target on this show, which is people who are craving balance. And because I think that if anyone is listening and they're like, I need more balance in my life, or they find themselves saying that, or they think that the idea that not wanting balance is somehow ridiculous. Maybe you're a first time listener, but we go after balance a lot, mainly because not that balance isn't a thing, it's that it's not accurate language for what most people mean when they say they want balance. And this is, I think, a little answer to your question. If you find yourself saying, I need a greater sense of homeostasis, a greater sense of I have a hold of myself, things are contained, you're craving some popular sense of balance, here's a little test that will tell you if that's actually what will serve you, or if really that's what you're looking for. Do you have any historical knowledge of you in your life, as I'm here speaking to you and me and the whole listener crew, who have felt a similar feeling, and you said, I want balance, and you realized what was out of balance was you weren't stressed enough. There wasn't enough tension in your life. And you decided to go create more tension. Like that was how you created balance. Well, that would tell me that you actually were looking for balance. But most of the time, what people are saying when they say they want balance is they want relief. They feel some compression that is uncomfortable, that maybe they even chose, like I chose that class in college, and it was squeezing in a way that I was like, ouch, 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 ouch. I just want out. Let me out. And it was a bit of a hypothalamus hijack, right? It's the amygdala grabbing hold of me and saying, run away, freeze, hide, flight or fight thing. And if I have any kind of autonomy in my life, I could actually just pull the lever. I could, fill out a little form, sign the form. I'll have to pay for the class, but I can drop the class and off I go. And that's where kind of the reveal is if it's just relief, are you sure you want to give up the whole thing? Because there might be more value to the thing that you're in the middle of than you're giving credit. And sometimes it's when you choose it, but sometimes it's when it chooses you. When circumstance comes your way, you can look at it as a means by which you're suffering and it's awful. But if you can somehow get to a place where you actually see the thing as an opportunity for training, there's a radical shift. Everything it's you are relating with it differently. The space between you and it is adjusting because of your attitude about that space. And as you change your perspective around that, all of a sudden you might discover like, oh no, this is a remarkable set of circumstances that if I relate with this differently, I'm going to get something out of it that I would never have gotten otherwise that will serve me for the rest of my days. And this is what we want to invite people into. In fact, in some cases, getting to that threshold of discomfort, it's actually a scarce resource. It's rare. It takes a lot of work to get to that place sometimes. And there's an opportunity when we get to that place where we can bring clarity to the situation so that you will have a better sense of what the right move is for you in that season. And it could be that moving toward the thing, creating more tension, actually would be helpful. And we just want to make sure we've entertained that as a possibility before we pull the ripcord.
So we're talking a lot about kind of the overwhelm, or
yep,
maybe like on your calendar or with the different things that you're navigating. What about the other things that we're voluntarily, but maybe not consciously choosing, that are kind of burdening us and weighing on us? I think, you think about decision fatigue, and in the business world, you'll see a bajillion articles on LinkedIn about Steve Jobs and his outfit, or, all of these things. And I think, there's good value there, but I think there's, like you said, there's greater nuance to this situation. So I'd love to talk a little bit about how this interplays with the things that we've chosen, the things that we haven't chosen, the things that we're under, things that we're not even conscious to. Because I think, like we were talking before we started recording, like clarity is a really big piece of this.
Yeah.
But not clarity in a vacuum, like a very particular kind.
Yeah. So let's say that someone's overwhelmed by decisions. They feel like they're just flooded with decisions coming their way. And at that moment, the temptation is, I don't want any more decisions. I would like relief from decisions, please. And if I have some kind of ability to remove decisions, I can press a button and they go away. Or I can tell people I'm out and it can go away. I can break my commitments and they can go away. And I can ghost someone, and they seemingly go away. I can go dark and they go away. And in reality, the commitment didn't go anywhere. Just because you walked away or got quiet or didn't do a thing, what's lingering is, and you might even ghost somebody and they seem to go away, but you still have this broken commitment that you're carrying with you wherever you go. That's the rub. And the clarity that you're speaking to, I think, is this opportunity as an adult to take pause and get clear with yourself about what commitments have you made. Are those commitments, how do they rank in terms of value? Like a moment ago, you mentioned Steve Jobs and decision-making, and he reduced his decision-making load by deciding what clothes he was going to wear every single day, bought the same jeans and turtleneck and sneakers, and off he went. And he wore those every single day. The lore around that is the value of choosing what you're going to wear is so low compared to the other decisions that he was making that were so high. And he wanted to take those decision-making energy outputs around clothes and just capture that and put it over here for much harder, more difficult, more stressful decision-making things. So
higher stakes,
much higher stakes.
Yeah.
Much higher stakes. And I think that's a helpful way to look at it. I remember I read an article once that Malcolm Gladwell wrote about where he talked about his weight problem. And if you know anything about Malcolm Gladwell, he's a pretty slight individual. So a very provocative way to describe a problem that he was carrying, that he had a weight problem. But what he was talking about was he would have a deadline, I think at the New Yorker at the time, for an article. And he also would have a few pieces of trash in his wastebasket. And he couldn't tell which was more important, to empty the wastebasket or to meet his deadline. He couldn't weight things accurately. And his I believe the case he was making was, get clear. Like, deal with your weight problem. deal with an understanding of what's at stake in one context versus what's at stake in another. And that's a way to travel light, which is something that we've talked about historically. But what it's not is it's not trying to get out of the high stakes, high value, high return discomfort that you're really tempted to jettison and actually give up the opportunity for growth, the opportunity for maturity, the opportunity for you to stay true to your word, to be the kind of person that's trustworthy, that grows in confidence, that is really satisfied at the end of a hard day's work. Those things are incredibly valuable. And yet a lot of folks, they'll struggle with self-worth and anxiety and esteem, and they'll say, if I only had more support in these areas, something outside of me to give me these things, I would feel better about myself. And what we're saying is, no. If you want those kinds of things, they actually come intrinsically. They come from keeping your word. They come from having the experience of doing the hard thing, of not dropping the accounting class or the economics class, but sticking in it, facing the consequences of not even having the right stuff to get through the thing in the first round, but coming back at it again and feeling incredibly satisfied when you get it done the second time. Being willing to pay that price to get the better outcome, the much bigger game, the infinite game. And this is why it's probably not for you, for a lot of people. Like, this is hard. This is extraordinarily hard. But if you look at high achievers, high performers, like the real article, the people who really create and perform, they all talk like this. They don't shy away from the work, from the monotony, from the discomfort. They shed the things that are low stakes and go all in on the things that are high stakes. And they get closer. They get in closer proximity to what feels challenging. And the result is they put themselves in a position to actually get the fruit of compression, that now they become the kinds of people that others look at and go, oh my gosh, they're extraordinary, not recognizing the price they paid to be in that position.
I love this nuance because it speaks to those kind of common solutions that we run to, which is that I need to shed something, or I need to do something to feel productive or feel like I'm moving forward, and everything looks the same. And we don't take that chance and actually like have the discipline to actually be honest with ourselves, to analyze, to get that clarity. I think one of the gifts of discomfort, involuntary discomfort even, like, when someone that's close to you is navigating something really hard, or you've lost your job, or you've received a diagnosis, there's this incredible, almost like primal clarity that comes in those moments to see like what is really important.
Yes.
All the stuff kind of like fades away.
Yes.
And I think we experience that in small ways when we're choosing this discomfort, which I think is why it's so powerful. Like when you're in a really hard workout, or you're doing something you really don't want to do, everything in your body is saying, don't do this. And you're able to kind of persevere and grow through that. Like, yes, there's just an incredible clarity that comes in those moments, in that micro, but it also is building this kind of agency and clarity in the macro that we can leverage in these other areas in life. And I think anyone who's experienced tragedy or job loss or anything like that can speak to that as well.
Yeah, that sobriety that you're describing, especially when something shocking comes your way and you're facing it head on. And I know many listeners are in that position right now. It's a double edge to it. There's a sense of like, this is horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And yet there's a clarity about the bigger things that you can only really access, it seems, when you're under that kind of duress. And I remember years ago, our dog Zoe died. It was our first real family pet. And it was sudden. She was only 3. She was getting fixed and she had a heart attack when she was coming out of anesthesia. And so very shocking. We had small kids, and we pulled the curtains, shut the door, locked ourselves in the house for a week and cried. All of us, me, Tammy, all the kids. We just sat in the living room together and cried. And it was awful. It was awful. And at the same time, we reflected back on it, and we had this sense of like, it was also like a little like heaven. Like there was something so, all the dross was burnt away. There was just so raw. There's so much of us in the room. There was a sense of connectivity that was available to us that we couldn't have had access to, crying together like that. Even though our kids, our little entitled, monsters that were becoming humans, they were more human in that moment. And Tam and I got to be with them in a way, be with ourselves, be with each other in a way that was just incredible, like severe, but there was a lot of grace there. There's love in the room in a way that just we could access, we could touch it and feel it, and we needed it. So the house, that's, blessed are those that are in the house of mourning is a weird phrase, right? But it actually, for people who've been there and have had the gift of, like, they're not despairing, but they're with people in that, it's remarkable. And again, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's terrible, and it's amazing, and it's rare air. So when we say voluntary discomfort, we're not saying go to the house of mourning, but we are saying, like, what happens when you get in a cold shower? What happens when you hold your breath? What happens when you treat a homeless person like a person instead of someone you're superior to? What happens when you see someone who's very different than you and you get in a conversation and you seek understanding, even though you really disagree with them? What's it like to give someone the last word? What's it like to have someone flip you off in the freeway after they cut you off and you not react? Like, it's terrible, and it's amazing. And it's almost like a microdose of the terrible, like, house of mourning moments. And it has this double impact. Number one, those days where you get flipped off and you don't react, you have total freedom in that moment. You get to go on with your day and you've avoided an amazing obstacle just by showing up presently in that discomforting moment. You stuck with it when you wanted to abandon your values and flip the other person back off. But the other benefit is, if you find yourself in circumstances, or rather when you find yourself in circumstances that are closer to the house of mourning than they are to the freeway, you are so much more prepared to take full advantage of this thing you can't avoid anyways. You can't press a button and delete the course and have it go away. You're going to be in it whether you prefer it or not. But now you actually have the substance required to navigate it well, to navigate it in a way that isn't just for you even. You're strong, you're awake, and you actually have something to offer those around you. And that's a worthy investment, to do these microdoses to get yourself into a position where you have substance and something to offer. If you're ever in that moment, you're pretty glad you made those choices.
I agree. I like that idea of microdosing discomfort.
I mean, that's what we do. Yeah. It's funny because men and women with discomfort is actually not that uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. That's the irony. Like, people get all in a huff about giving up creamer in their coffee. It's like, oh my gosh, you addict. You have no, like it's unbelievable. Like, I could never get in cold water voluntarily. What? Like, do you?
I'm hearing myself in all of these things
me
that
too.
You're saying too.
And
like,
me too.
Yeah.
And me too. And me too.
Yes.
Yeah, I was in the conversation this morning.
I almost have this every morning, getting into a cold shower.
100%.
Yeah.
I had it this morning, actually. And kind of dramatically, moving around, getting through the moment. And I was in a conversation this morning with a couple of guys that I meet with that are in many ways mentors in my life. And we were talking about money, and we were talking about how much is enough. And all our money's going to go away when we die. It's just going to dissipate. And yet it's really tempting for me to spend most of my time with money worrying, do I have enough? Worrying, will I have enough? Or maybe taking money for granted and being like, well, I have it. Why don't I spend it? Without any consciousness to how it could benefit somebody else or what the implications are on my own character by just moving along that way. Not in tune with my comparison and envy and things that are driving me all the time, like it was an uncomfortable conversation. And the easy thing to do is to not have those kinds of conversations. But the more resourceful thing to do is when I come across it and I find myself reacting to it, like to treat that as the signal of I get to go towards that thing. That's the blue light special that's going to give me what I'm really craving, and or will be glad that I have once I have it, even though it's something I don't want to get into. And that's the opportunity of opportunities, is when people are in that mode of like, I just want relief and they want to hit the eject button. Just give it a second, give it a minute. Are you sure that's what you actually will want? Is there a way to travel lighter? Is there a way to walk toward the thing, but maybe have the right clothes for the storm you're walking toward? But let's talk for a second about, let's say people do take pause. They do get the clarity they're looking for, and they're like, and I need to get rid of that thing. Let's talk
I
a
didn't
little.
even have to remind you, Dane.
Well,
you just brought it full circle.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm bringing full circle is I think of my buddy Tim. Like, for those who don't know, my buddy Tim and I started Men and Women of Discomfort, and then he gets cancer and he spends a year where his body's betraying him, and then he dies. And how he showed up in that year was really impressive. And along the way, he appropriately got out of some things that weren't very valuable because of the season that he was walking into an incredibly difficult thing. And to your point earlier, like the clarity came on him very quickly. It wasn't about how can I get relief, because he wasn't getting any relief. That relief was not part of the equation. He was getting, whether he preferred it or not, duress. And the priority of what was at stake became really clear, and he got rid of things. And I guess what I want to suggest is, if that's where you're at as a listener, in the process of getting rid of things, don't just assume that because your life is really, really horrible or terrible in a moment, that it will serve you to just forget things, to just like, oh, everyone will understand. They might understand, but it won't serve you if you don't go through the process of taking responsibility for what you're on the hook for. So let's say you're on the hook for a meeting. I'm going to be there at noon. And on the way to that meeting, maybe it's 11:15, you have a 45-minute drive, you have a flat tire, you get in a car accident, someone fender benders you, whatever it is. Do you need to call people and let them know you're not going to make it? Some would say, well, everyone will understand when they find out later that I got in a car accident that I couldn't make it to the meeting. But that actually won't serve you very much. What's more interesting in that kind of an example is for someone to take pause and go, I'm on the hook for a lot of things right now. I'm going to stay awake to the things that I'm responsible to, and I'm going to account for those things. All I need to do is send a signal and make a request. Easy peasy. And everyone will forgive you and it'll be just fine. But let's say it's something else. Let's say it's not as dramatic as something happening to you. Maybe you had poor planning that day. Maybe you're behind the 8 ball. Maybe everything's flooding in and it was a little surprise something happened in your life, but part of it was because you didn't actually take responsibility for the whole of your life. You didn't order things and organize things in such a way where you could keep your word. There's still an opportunity there to get the communication opened up and make a request, and see, and making that request might be the uncomfortable thing that you walk toward that gives you what you need. And it's worth doing. It's worth doing. I've seen people do it when they're, I'm going to be late for the meeting. My dad died. Like, well, no one needs you to say that. We're all going to totally be fine with it, but it actually might serve you to find a way to take responsibility for those things. And as someone whose dad has died, I can say, or like, again, it's just one example of, I'm always nervous giving these examples, right? Because maybe somebody's listening, dad just died, and that's awful, right? Like I'm not trying to have a totality of all the different circumstances that people are navigating. But what I'm saying is, if it occurs to you that there's still room for you to account for your word, to make requests, to honor your word by making a request, it's not for the person you're making the request of. It's for you. And as you do that, even as uncomfortable as it might be, it will help you navigate the very thing that you're facing And it will set up others to be resources for you, because you can make a request. You can ask for help. You can invite people into it. You can actually move closer to the thing that you might be resisting. And if those kinds of requests also involve feelings of like, I'm undermined, I feel shame, I feel guilt, I feel whatever, all the more opportunity to walk toward the thing. Because if you've surrounded yourself with the right kind of people, it'll only produce good fruit. And it's hard, but you get to experience the gift of asking for forgiveness, asking for help, especially if you feel like you want to be somebody who doesn't need those things. And these are gifts for you, for your character to go through in order to become more true to who you were made to become.
Who you're becoming, like the reason we call this podcast like Strong and Awake, the Unlikely Path podcast, is because, this is so critical and an important metaphor to keep in mind, especially in this context. We were talking, I can't remember if it was before we hit record or not, but, traveling light or, reducing decision fatigue or moving in a certain direction is not just about like letting yourself off the hook from the journey itself or taking some easier route. Yeah. It's about releasing on like the baggage that you don't need to be carrying, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. Like it's going to still be difficult and challenging, but that's not the antithesis of good,
That's right.
And I think that's something we so often forget, especially in this context. So Dane, we're at time. I think part of your running late meeting story was directed at me because my lunch break is over, but I love it. And I ask for forgiveness, but I'd love, because, we have a limited, finite amount of time, of energy. We talk about like casting a vote for who you want to become. We have finite votes in those moments. And I think one of the best thing that's really transformed me is participating and kind of walking this path with others, with guides. And that's exactly what MWOD is about. So an kind of no shame plug for MWOD and our community and what we're about, because I do think it's a massive resource to people that are just looking for that first step.
And one of my favorite things about our community is we're not trying to do it perfect, because none of us are going to do that. But we do want to increase our capacity for wholeheartedness. And it's really hard to do that alone. It just is. And when we have a chance to do it with others in community, with people who have a similar perspective on our mental model is aligned and our worldview is aligned, doing it alone in contrast with doing it together, it just strikes me as crazy. If you can actually access other humans who want to do the hard thing, become those kinds of people. And if that resonates with folks, yeah, of course we would love for them to consider jumping in with our crew. I think the good news is we're not going away, but at the same time, opportunities pass. And for some of you, you might be in a window where you're like, if you don't actually take action on this kind of thing now, you're going to get lulled back to sleep. There's actually something acute going on in your life. And when that happens, that tends to be when you need a practice most, not least. So if you're aware of this, if you're conscious to that craving, and especially if it makes you sweat a little bit, the idea of it, those are all the signals that, yes, this is the moment entirely. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, that sounds easy and fun and no big deal, well, jump in too. But I think you're going to find out it's going to feel different once you get in the mix. So it's funny, we're recording this at the end of a quarter, getting ready to do our anchor challenge, our end of round experience, and I'm just mindful of all the individuals that have navigated the very things we're describing throughout the round, and seeing them in real life right now, hearing what they're saying about their life, the fruit of that effort. Yeah, they got in stupid good shape, but that's not what they're talking about. What they're talking about is like, my world looks different, not just I look different. And I want that for more people. So yeah, MWOD.io/apply. Would love to have you consider it.
And we'll see you on the inside.
Men and Women of Discomfort is our membership community, and we are open to everyone. But keep in mind, our tagline is, it's probably not for you. If we're wrong about that, or if you want to find out for yourself, you can find us at MWOD.io.